I learned to speak with my hands because the man I loved told me our daughter was a defective product. He didn't just want to return her. He wanted to bury her in the dark. Before I reveal how I moved $8 million under Julian's nose, I need to know who is listening. Drop the name of your city in the comments. I want to see how far our silence reaches tonight. If you believe that a house built on lies deserves to be leveled to the ground, hit the like button and subscribe to join our legacy. We are building something Julian could never understand. Share this with one person who needs to know that silence is the loudest weapon we have. My name is Cora. In the elite penthouses of Boston, my husband Julian was the king of sound. He owned the airwaves. Every hit song passed through his ears first, but the day our daughter, Maya, was born into a world of total silence, he decided she didn't belong in his symphony. He didn't realize that silence is where their real power hides. The hospital room felt like a tomb. I remember the fluorescent lights hummed, a sound Maya would never hear. Outside, the snow was whipping across the Charles River, blurring the lights of the Prudential Center into ghostly smudges. The doctor stood at the foot of the bed. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at his clipboard, then at me, then at the tiny bundle in the transparent bassinet. When he finally signed the news before he spoke it, I felt a strange shift in the room. I didn't breathe. I didn't feel a thing. Not anger, not joy, just blank. It was as if the world had been muted, matching my daughter's reality. Maya was profoundly deaf. Julian didn't even touch her. He didn't lean in to smell her head or marvel at her tiny fingernails. He stood by the window staring at his reflection in the dark glass, adjusted his silk tie, and spoke to the glass instead of to me. I build icons, Cora. I sell voices. My entire brand is built on the perfection of the human ear. How am I supposed to show a silent child to my investors? She's a glitch in the Vance legacy, a technical error. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, waiting for him to say he was scared or that we would find the best doctors. But his face was a mask of cold granite. We'll send her to a private facility in the Berkshires, he continued, out of sight. We'll try for a functional heir next year. One that actually works. I looked at Maya. She was yawning, a tiny, perfect silent stretch. In that moment, the blankness inside me crystallized into something lethal. My heart didn't just break, it became a fortress. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched him. Stop the music. I have a question for you. If your partner called your baby a glitch, would you stay for the money or run into the storm? Drop a run in the comments if you choose the baby. I want to see who is standing with us today. For the next 3 years, I became a ghost in my own home. Julian thought I had been broken by the news. Julian thought my silence was submission. To the world, I was still the trophy wife, draped in Chanel, standing by his side at the Boston Symphony Hall. I would smile for the cameras, nodding as he bragged about his latest audio while inside. I felt nothing. No spark of love, no flicker of heat, just a cold, calculating void. While Julian was at the yacht club drinking $500 scotch with his men, I was in the nursery. The doors were locked. The cameras were looped. My fingers would ache at night as I learned the dance of exile, teaching Maya that the world wasn't empty. It was just waiting for her to claim it. I wasn't just learning to sign. I was meeting with geneticists in the dark to find the truth about the Vance bloodline. I discovered something. Connexin 26 is a protein that allows cells in the inner ear to communicate. When the GJB2 gene is mutated, it's the leading cause of genetic hearing loss. I was a spy in a house of glass. I found the medical records hidden in his desk. Julian was a fraud. He had spent his whole life hiding a mutation in the GJB2 gene, the same one Maya carried. He wore internal high-tech hearing aids. Without them, he was as silent as the daughter he despised. He called her defective to hide the fact that he was the original glitch. I felt the sting of his hypocrisy. I felt the weight of his lies. And then I just felt focused. I began the genetic heist. Every month I moved thousands, then millions from his archive fund, a tax-sheltered account he never checked. I didn't steal. I just moved $8 million from his archive fund into a trust I named the Silent Legacy. The night we left started like any other. Julian came home late, smelling of gin and expensive perfume. That wasn't mine. He walked into the nursery and saw 3-year-old Maya signing milk to her teddy. He didn't see a child communicating. He saw a reminder of his own weakness. He slapped her tiny hands down, the sound echoing in the quiet room. "None of that monkey business in this house," he hissed. "If she won't use her voice, she won't use anything." I stood in the doorway. I didn't breathe. I simply picked Maya up and walked out. I only took the yellowed envelope, the one I had discovered, the one containing the truth about her father's forgotten brother. We vanished into the Boston fog. We lived in the shadows for the first year. I stripped away the Chanel and the diamonds, trading them for a drafting table, a laptop, and other necessary gadgets. Julian had put out a quiet search, not for a missing wife and child. He didn't want us back. He wanted his $8 million back. But I was an architect. I knew how to build structures that were invisible. While Maya played with blocks, I sat at that drafting table until 4 a.m. I started small. I designed private sensory rooms for children like Maya, spaces where the architecture itself spoke. I used my knowledge of building construction to create floors that vibrated at the frequency of a mother's hum. I used fiber optic lighting built into the drywall that would pulse soft blue when the doorbell rang or warm amber when the oven timer went off. I didn't feel the fatigue. I was just determined, and in that determination, I was efficient. By the 5th year, my firm, Sensory World, was no longer a secret. We were the silent architects. We weren't building homes. We were building experiences. While Julian's music labels began to struggle, his ears failing him as the GJB2 mutation accelerated, making him more reliant on the very tech I was secretly patenting. I was thriving. I watched him from afar. The king of sound loses his touch. He was firing producers, screaming at engineers because he couldn't feel the soul of the music anymore. The truth was, his internal aids were glitching. He was becoming the very thing he wanted to bury. 12 years later, Julian is nearly bankrupt. He hears rumors of a revolutionary building in the Seaport District. They call it the Palace of Vibrations. The critics say it's a masterpiece of emotional spaces. Desperate, Julian schedules a meeting with the anonymous CEO. He steps through the biometric doors. The silence is absolute. The walls pulse with light strips synced to his own heartbeat. I watched him on the security feed. I didn't feel a surge of triumph. I didn't feel a flicker of pity. I didn't feel anything. I just watched. He walks across the floor. It's made of specialized acoustic wood. It's vibroacoustic architecture. Every step he takes sends a low-frequency hum through his bones. He stops, confused. He can hear the building through his feet. A girl walks down the stairs. She is tall, graceful. She is 15. She has the Vance family's piercing blue eyes. She looks at Julian, the man who called her a glitch, and her face is blank. She moves her hands in a dance of lightning-fast signs, her expression one of pure, regal indifference. Your heart is out of tune. You smell like expensive gin and cowardice. Julian's jaw dropped. He fumbled with his ear, but all he got was faint. Maya? Comment truth below. If you believe family is more than just blood, I'm reading every single comment. She's the lead architect, Julian, I said, my voice steady and proud. We don't need voices to be heard. Julian fell to his knees. The king was finally small. He reached for Maya's hand, his eyes welling with the first tears I had ever seen from him. He was begging for a place in her empire, for a way to hear the world clearly again. It's now faint. Maya didn't pull away. She leaned in, her fingers tracing the scar behind his ear where his machine was hidden. She looked him dead in the eye and signed one final word, broken. She turned her back. The biometric doors locked with a heavy thud. Julian's voice didn't work. He was in a silent room, and for the first time, nobody was listening. As we walked away, I looked at my daughter. She didn't need to hear me to know what I was thinking. We were no longer running. We were hunting. It's time, Maya. Time to meet your Uncle Silas, the one Julian left in the dark. Do you want to know the secret of the forgotten brother? Hit that like button if you believe the truth always wins, because Maya and I aren't finished. You remember that night I vanished into the Boston fog? Yes, that night, I had grabbed a yellowed envelope from Julian's safe. It was from Julian's father, Arthur Vance. Inside was a medical file that turned my blood to ice. I'd spent years decoding its secrets. A letter therein revealed something even more sinister. Julian wasn't the first child Arthur had tried to fix. 30 years ago, there was an older brother, Silas. Silas was the true heir to the Vance empire, but unlike Julian, Silas was proud. He refused the machines. He refused to pretend he could hear just to make the Vance brand look perfect. Julian and his father couldn't have a broken heir representing their music labels. So they did the unthinkable. They had Silas declared mentally unstable and locked him away in a private sanitarium in Wellesley. Julian didn't just inherit the company, he stole it from a brother he left in a padded cell for 10 years. We drove to Wellesley. The sanitarium was a gray, toothless building hidden behind overgrown oaks. The air inside smelled of bleach, old cabbage, and forgotten souls. My heart constricted as we passed rows of heavy, rusted doors. This was the Vance family's charity, a living grave for a man who committed the crime of being different. We opened the door to room 402. I expected it to be a prank, like which father could do this to his son. Instead, it was true. We found Silas. He was sitting on a thin stained mattress, but his walls, they were covered in masterpieces. He had used smuggled charcoal and even food stains to paint the colors of sound across the peeling wallpaper. When he saw Maya, his eyes widened. He looked at her hands, then at mine. A tear tracked through the deep lines on his face, lines carved by years of isolation. He didn't need words. He signed to us, his fingers trembling but certain. Cora. He stammered. You're a brave woman. Thank you so much, Cora. Thank you, Maya. He touched Maya's cheek with a hand that had known only cold stone for years. His gratitude was raw, genuine, and so thick it felt like I was drowning in it. Stop. Imagine your own brother stealing your life and locking you in a sanitarium just so he could pretend to be a king. If you think Silas deserves to walk free and take back the empire, type pro-revenge in the comments and let me know, where are you watching from? I want to know who is ready for the final reckoning. The real king is just waking up. Like this video if you stand with Maya and Silas. As Silas hugged Maya and I signed hurriedly. We need to be at the gala in Seaport District ASAP.
Look closely at what we have built together. This is the future we were promised, and we are just getting started.
At the gala in the Seaport District, the room was a sea of black ties and diamond necklaces. Julian stood on that stage, the king of sound in his $5,000 suit, soaking up the applause. He looked untouchable. He didn't know that with one tap on Maya's tablet, his world was about to vanish. The music died, the lights shifted, and Julian's internal translation software, the tech he used to fake his way through life, flatlined. Julian froze. His eyes darted around like a trapped animal. The moderator asked him a question, but Julian only heard a hollow, terrifying void. He started to stammer, his mouth opening and closing as the sweat broke across his forehead. I can't, please. The sound is, The king was gargling on his own lies. Then the 50-foot screen behind him flickered to life. It wasn't his logo. It was Maya. As her signs filled the room, Julian realized the entire elite of Boston was watching his shame. He stumbled off the podium, tripping over the wires he once owned. He saw me standing in the wings. He fell to his knees in front of the front row investors, grabbing at my hem. Cora, please. I didn't mean, it was for the brand. Forgive me. I'll make it right. Just turn it back on. I can't hear anything. Cora, please. His voice was a pathetic, cracked shadow of the man I once loved. He looked at Maya, begging with his eyes for a mercy he never showed her. Maya didn't even blink. She looked down at him with the same blank indifference he had given her in that hospital room 15 years ago. I leaned down, my voice a cold, sharp blade over the whispers of the crowd. The daughter you called a defective product now owns your ears, I proudly said. Your internal aids? They're running on Maya's code now. You are the silent one now. While Julian was chasing the ghost of sound, Cora used the $8 million and the royalties from her vibroacoustic patents to quietly acquire the parent company that manufactured the very sensors inside his head. Cora didn't just design buildings, she designed the sensors and haptic tech that allows people to feel sound. By patenting the way sound translates into physical vibration, she effectively boxed in Julian's technology. The empire collapsed in seconds. Julian huddled on the stage floor, his hands over his ears, weeping as the cameras flashed, capturing his ultimate humiliation. He wished the ground could open for him to hide his shame, but there was nowhere to go. Silence was his new home. Everyone was in absolute awe of Maya's confidence. She is not profoundly deaf. She is a differently enabled human, an intelligent one. Silas and I filed lawsuit on Julian. We pressed on every single charge pressable. We dismantled the lives of Julian and his father the way they dismantled Silas's 30 years ago. No, I'm not bitter. I'm just making Julian realize that actions always have consequences. The biggest revenge wasn't the life imprisonment or the bars. The biggest revenge was walking away with my dignity intact, achieving massive success with my profoundly enabled daughter, Maya, and making the world know the truth. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next Mastermind Revenge. And tell me, what would you do in this situation? Was I right to take his empire, or should we have forgiven him? Comment justice or mercy below. I'm reading every single comment. Drop a comment and stay tuned for the next pro revenge.